Live from Radio Road, Jake Asman hanging out with you. Final day of broadcasting here from the Bay Area, and we are joined by one of my favorite fighters of all time, the Boxing Hall of Famer. It's our guy, Andre Ward, who's here with us on behalf of Zuffa Boxing. Andre, appreciate you stopping by. What's going on?
Happy to be here, man. Excited. Super Bowl is here once again. What year was it when they were in Santa Clara?
That was a decade ago, right? That was Super Bowl 50, and here we are, Super Bowl 60.
I went to that, so they're back again. Excited about that. A lot of energy in the city, man. So happy to be here.
For you, when you get introduced and someone says Boxing Hall of Famer, does that ever get old?
It never gets old. I mean, that was the goal. That was the ultimate goal. It's exciting. It just warms my heart because that's just a lifelong career of just sacrifice and just dedication, and that's just the confirmation to know that you did it.
When did you realize that this was something you wanted to do?
I thought I wanted to do it when I was 10 years old, when I first walked in the gym. And then after the first couple of days of sparring, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then once I started to get my legs under me, and maybe 7 months in, I was like, man, I think I can do it. When I won my first national at 10 years old, after a year of being in the gym, I knew I had something. And then I started setting my goals on Olympics, then World Championship, and then Hall of Fame. So after a year, once I won that first national, I said, I got something.
Did you fall in love with it right away once you started doing it? Like, was it instant? Like, wow, this is like something I just don't only want to do maybe for a career someday, but like this was your passion immediately.
I like the competitiveness. I like the one-on-one aspect of it. I've played a lot of different sports, and one of the most frustrating things about team sports is the person to the left or the right may or may not be on the same page. They may not have the same intensity you have or care about winning the way you do. So that part of it, like just being one-on-one and everything being on me, was exciting. But again, initially, my dad was like, yeah, I don't think he has it. And Virg was like, give him some time. So once I got past that first 6 months to a year, man, it was something I felt like I couldn't live without.
Who are some of the fighters, as you were getting into the sport, that you watched, that you tried to model maybe your game around, your style?
Yeah, my big three is Roy Jones, Floyd Mayweather, and Bernard Hopkins. I feel like I'm a hybrid of all three of those guys. I've watched all the guys. I watched the Alis, the Sugar Ray Robinsons, Nerds, James Toney. I mean, I can go down the list, but those three were like the ones that I honed in on, and I felt like I was a mesh of all three.
You're in the Hall of Fame. You're an Olympic gold medalist. Is there a fight, though, or a memory, if I say you got to just pick one thing that stands out in your fighting career that stands out above everything else?
I think it's the fight that a lot of people talk about that say it's controversy around it, and that was my second to last fight, Kovalev won. I had dealt with a lot of physical elements going in there. I'm in tears in training camp trying to figure out, should I pull out of the fight, should I not? But I knew I couldn't. And it was a moment where I had to really, really trust God, because, I'm facing the most dangerous fighter I've ever fought, and I don't have one of my main weapons, my legs, my knees were swelling up and stuff like that. So to be able to get in that fight, get knocked down, and sort of get it out of the mud and come from behind in that fight like I never have before. I'm typically the guy in front. That's a special moment for me. That confirmed to me again that, man, you're really like that. You are a great fighter.
How did you know when it was time to hang it up?
It's interesting, man. I kind of felt like I wanted to retire 3-4 years before I did. I started using the word, I'm like, something's
Don't
going
they
on.
say when you mention it, if you're already talking about retirement, you should basically just retire at that point?
Yeah, but it's not that simple. I knew that the seed was planted. Like, I always knew I wanted to leave on my own terms. I studied the Jim Browns and how he retired, being on the set of Dirty Dozens and acting in Army fatigues and arguing with the Browns owner and telling him this is what I want, and the Browns owner standing his ground and Jim Brown retiring right there. I watched my pastor Napoleon Kaufman go 6 years with the Raiders and all of a sudden go into ministry and leave and never return. I watched the George Foremans, even though George came back. I watched and studied those types of fighters, but I also studied the ones that didn't leave on time. And that's the majority of fighters. And I knew at 12, 13 years old, I don't want that to happen to me. So I knew, like I said, 3-4 years before I did, and I thought I was done after Kovalev won. I went and talked to my pastor. I was like, I don't know. He was like, man, I think you got one more left in you. I was like, what? And I always felt like when I got to the point where I could walk away, there's always a reason I should stay. So, but I'm glad he said the one more. My legacy would have had a lot of questions about it if I would have left after Kovalev won. So I'm glad I followed through with that. And the paycheck wasn't bad either. I was glad to get that paycheck.
But you're a fighter like yourself. It's not too shabby to go out there and continue to fight a little bit. For you as a broadcaster now, like, do you still feel like you're just as connected to the sport that you obviously love and spent your life in because you're around these fighters, you're around the big promotions, you're working now with Zuffa and the UFC, of course, coming together. Like, do
Yeah.
you still feel like you're involved, even if you're not actually going after taking hits to the head anymore?
Man, I've been quietly doing this for well over a decade. I started even before I retired,
Right.
long before I retired. But you can't really fully commit to it because of the career. You're still active. But in retirement, man, has been everything for me because I I'm close enough. Like you just mentioned. I'm close enough, but I'm not taking any punch. I got the best seat in the house. I'm around the fighters. I get to exercise that, that competitiveness, and I get to watch these guys, but I don't have to get in there. Like, I know that I'm retired and I'm a civilian now because I watch some of these fights and I'm like, I can't believe I used to do that. Like, you just what he just hit him with? Like, I can't believe I used to take that punch and then deliver a punch. So that's how you know your brain is sort of turned into civilian mode. But the commentating has been perfect, close enough, but not too far in the ring.
Let's talk about Zuffa now, right? There's a brand new promotion that the UFC is involved with. Dana White is
Yes.
part of it, spearheading it. And that's always been my big thing as someone who is a fan of both the UFC and boxing. It's always felt like the UFC, because of the way it's structured, the best fights get made. I know that's part of the concept of Zuffa, right? To try and get a boxing organization where the best fighters can actually fight each other. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, I like it so far, man. It's been great. I think that's one thing that Zuffa has gotten right just in the first two shows is the even matchmaking. Nobody's overmatched, nobody's undermatched. You don't really know what you have until a prospect, a contender, or a guy that's in championship contention is matched just right, where you can see actually what's on the inside. There's a lot of young fighters that I watch coming up, and they have soft touches into their 10th, 15th, 17th fight, and I'm thinking, you got to false sense of yourself. Like, you have potential, but you're not who you think you are. And then they find out on the night in the biggest moment that they're not who they thought they were. So I think the matchmaking is key to actually see the diamonds in the rough, the guys that are not getting opportunities, have not been consistent in their careers. Now they get that opportunity, as well as just making sure that they're making a living for their families. And then, to your point, putting on the biggest fights.
Do you like where boxing is going? It felt like for a while there was all these criticisms of the sport, and people have talked about, Jake Paul's bringing in all this attention. What does that say about the sport of boxing if a YouTuber is able to come into the sport and have these big draws? But it feels like boxing is starting to really make that comeback. Your thoughts on where the sport is headed?
I like where it is currently. There's always going to be things we have to deal with. My big issue is that some of the foundational things we never address, like obviously Turkey El Sheikh and his team have come in and not just thrown a lot of money at the sport, but thrown a lot of vision on the sport. It takes vision to say, match this guy with this guy, put these people on the undercard, and then we're going to make an event. It takes vision. So I appreciate that part of what they brought to the game. But there's still things that we overlook. There's still things we won't deal with that don't benefit fighters, and those are the things that I have the biggest issues with.
All right, couple quick hitters for you. Who, pound for pound, who are your top 5 boxers in the sport right now?
Man, I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, obviously Terrence Crawford was number one. But
you think he's done?
I think so. I think he's a man of his word. Shakur Stevenson is creeping to that top spot. You have Bam Rodriguez, you have Dimitri Bivol. Like, some of those names are interchangeable. I think all those guys are at the top. But I'm due to do my own pound for pound boxing list. I haven't done that in probably 5-6 years. But
people love lists. I can tell you, content-wise,
it goes crazy.
That goes everywhere.
It goes crazy.
Everyone's got an opinion
because everybody's an expert.
Yep.
What are you doing? How do you have a number one? So I'm actually due. This is good. You're talking about this. I'm due to do my own one.
I'm sure I won't be the only person that asked you today for something similar. We all love to get everyone's thoughts on who the top guys are, and there's no right answer, right? Because because of weight classes, that's why it's pound for pound. There's no way to truly know.
Some of it is subjective.
Sure.
Usyk is another one that's up there. Sometimes it's like, well, I like this style over this style, but accomplishment-wise, they're right there. And you put him, 1A instead of 1B. So some of it is subjective, but some of it is not subjective, and it just is what it is. And I think a guy like Terrence Crawford, who just retired, you can't argue that at that point in his career after what he did.
We can't argue. You're in the Hall of Fame. One of the best broadcasters now doing it. Andre, appreciate you hopping on the show.
Thank you, brother. Anytime. Appreciate
Andre Ward with us. Quick break. Back from Radio Row, live in San Francisco.